here at Berean, we are filled with men and women who are hard workers. We have a really high level of work ethic in this church, and it's phenomenal. We have people who are working not just a job. Some of you are working 2 jobs. Some of you are working 3 jobs. Some of you work overtime. Some of you are single parents and you're crushing it. It doesn't feel to you like you are, but you are. Some of you are stay-at-home parents and you don't even realize the amount of money that you're contributing to your family by eliminating childcare costs and minimizing expenses. So I just want to begin by saying, those of you who are working really hard, and maybe you're in debt, but you're working really hard and you have that work ethic, thank you for being a great example to the rest of us. You're doing an awesome job. But today's going to be some money tips about our habits related to money. And for some of you, this is not going to be new information. So I'm just going to ask you to bear with me this morning. For others of you, especially if you're a young person or a college student, it's very possible you've never heard the information that I'm going to share today. And so I hope this is valuable to you. If you're a real young person, I hope you can kind of park this away for a little bit later in your life, and I hope it's helpful. And some of you that are adults that are going to hear what we're sharing this morning, you're going to say, man, I know this now, but I wish I knew this sooner in my life. And so the goal is that we can talk about this openly as a church in a very practical way. So the very first tip related to money, related to living within our means and living a life of contentment, is to budget every dollar. Now, as soon as we talk about budget, I know that gets people so excited. You just love budgets. Don't we love budgets? Yeah. Okay, some of you are nerds and said yes. But here's the deal. Budgeting simply means I'm going to tell every dollar where it's going to go rather than have that dollar tell me where it went after it's gone. So budgeting is simply being intentional with my spending. And it starts by understanding my income. So the way you do this, and especially young people, is you figure out what is your monthly income. And some of you have irregular income streams, and so you just kind of take an average. What's my monthly income? That's what you have to work with. And then what you do is you take your expenses and you break them down by category, and you say, okay, how much am I comfortable spending in each category? For some people, they prefer to spend a lot on food because they really like food. For other people, ramen noodles and hot dogs are just fine with them. So you just kind of, it's your value system. What's important to you, what's important to your family, you're going to decide for each category what you want to spend. And I would encourage you when you're creating a budget to kind of go in this order, to begin with a decision of how much do I want to give to God. Start there and then work off the rest. It's a really cool place to begin. And then you're going to organize your essentials. What are the things I need? What are my bills I have to pay? And then you're going to go to debt elimination. And then you're going to go to savings. And last, you're going to go to wants. And when you're intentional about this, what it typically means is you're going to have a discussion with your spouse or your family every year at a minimum. So every December, Annie and I create a budget plan for the next year. And then if we have a change in income or expense during the year, we then have to relook and adjust our income or our expenses. So one of the challenges with this is you're going to have to create a lot of these the first few months because what you think you spend probably isn't what you spend. And what you think you make may not be what you think you make. So you're going to have to almost do like a personal audit where you track your expenses for a few months. Don't get confused or overwhelmed by that. G.I. Joe says knowledge is half the battle. And he was always right. So just figure out and get knowledge of your income and your expenses. And once you know what those two things are, you need to kind of right-size your plan because you want to live a life where you're spending less than you're making. Anyone wish we could teach our politicians that principle? Okay, that's not going to work. but we can learn that ourselves. How do we spend less than we make? That's called living within your means. And the only way we can do that is with an attitude of contentment. If I'm making this level of income, then I need to live a this level or lower standard of living. And that means I need to have contentment because there's people around me that are living at a higher level. And man, my greed, my envy, my discontent, my selfishness makes me want what they have. But contentment will help me stick to my budget. Okay, second money tip is, it sounds so simple, but it's called think long term. Here's the deal. We are in a culture that doesn't ask how much something costs. We ask, how much are the monthly payments? And if we can afford the monthly payments, we reach the conclusion, well, then I can afford that thing. And that is a really distorted way of viewing finances. So rather than thinking, can I afford the monthly payments? I should be first asking, what will I pay for that over the course of the payments? What will be the total amounts? And here's why. Over the course of my life and over the course of your life, I will be entrusted with a certain amount of money by God. And if it's God's money and not mine, then I really want to be a good manager of that money, and I really shouldn't waste a single penny. So I should ask myself, what am I going to be paying over the lifetime of those payments? So we're talking about contentment. We're talking about living under your means. We're talking about thinking long term. And we got to go back to the whole debt thing. Because the debt is what prevents many of us from being free to truly live within our means. So as we think about debt, a big question is all debt bad? Now, don't answer out loud because some people have really strong opinions about this on both sides. The position that we're going to take this morning is that there's two different types of debt. Okay? Two different types of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt. Now, I'm going to use that term loosely, and we're going to define those things. And if you disagree with that, please reach out to Pastor Ron, and he'll help you. Okay. Good debt is, we're gonna define it this way. It's an investment in something that's valuable and growing in value with low interest. And typically, it's a tax-deductible purchase. So help me out here. What would fall under this definition? Home and property purchases. Absolutely. Car? We'll get to cars in a minute. But would you say that cars grow or decrease in value over time? Decrease. So we'll get to cars in a minute. Good guess. You're thinking, is there anything else on you? Baseball cards. Maybe. So investment debt. So it could be purchases related to a business that you have, right? You need a tractor to farm a larger property that will help you generate more income. That's investment debt, perhaps, if it's helping you for your business or growing in value, and typically a low interest rate. Education, student loans. Oh, why don't we just talk about every polarizing issue today, right? Okay, so good debt. Let's talk a little bit about bad debt. Bad debt is a purchase that's losing value and typically will have high interest. The challenge with bad debt is it's usually everyday purchases, food, clothes, events, things that we're spending that doesn't increase in value. In fact, it's often a commodity, and it's not a great thing to go into debt for. The challenge with bad debt is you're never going to get your money back. So let's go to what we talked about a moment ago, a car. Let's use a new car, a 2024 VW Jetta, MSRP $21,000 and some change. So it's about 20 grand. If you get a typical 5-year loan at the current interest rates, then what you're going to find is during the course of that 5-year loan, you're going to pay about $24,000 for that VW Jetta. And after 5 years, congratulations, you own free and clear a VW Jetta that you've paid $24,000 for, and it's now worth $8,000. Okay? So something that's interesting is about the 2.5-year point, you see this X here, and this is where what you've paid for the car now intersects with what the car's worth. So at about 2.5 years in, it's going to be worth about $12,500. That's what you've already paid for it, and you got to pay that amount again over the next 2.5 years. So this is why we would say car debt is really bad debt, because you're losing money. In fact, you drive off the lot with that VW Jetta, and guess what it did? It dropped at least 10% in value. Right with that first drive off the lot. Have someone else drive it off the lot and give you $2,000, okay? So this is just a very simple chart saying car debt may be bad debt because you're losing value and paying far too much over the course of that loan. Okay, let's look at a different type of debt. Let's look at house debt. So let's say $200,000 for your home, and you're going to do a 30-year mortgage. Over the at the current 30-year interest rate, over the course of those 30 years, you're going to pay a little over, close to $600,000 for that home. So you're going to pay for that at least 2.5 times. I say close to 600, so a little over 500,000, like 507,000 that you're going to pay over the course of 30 years. If you read your mortgage papers when you sign them and read the fine print, it'll show you the total payout at the end of those 30 years, and it's staggering. It's like, I thought I was buying a $200,000 home. And the bank's like, you are. Just give us $500,000 for it, and it's yours. Okay, so it's like, well, then why is this good debt? Well, here's why it could be classified as good debt, is because it is growing in value, and at the current rate of appreciation for a home, your home will be worth more than what you've paid for it at the end of the 30 years. Your home will probably be worth over $600,000 after those 30 years, and you've paid about $500 and some. So not only will you have earned money, but you sell the house and you'll get out what you put into it, plus more. So that's just kind of the idea of good debt versus bad debt. Here's why I think you can do better. Because instead of doing this standard American mindset of a 30-year loan, if you say, no, I'm not going to be enslaved to the bank for 30 years. I'm going to do a much shorter loan. I'm going to do a 15-year. You know what you get when you get a 15-year? You get a better interest rate. You're going to spend, instead of over $500,000, you're going to spend about $300 and some thousand over the course of 15 years. And then what you have for the next 15 years? No payments to a bank and a home that's increasing in value. So young people, this is a hack that people that are middle-aged and older wish they had known. Only get something that you can afford a 15-year loan on. Only get a house, not something, that you can afford a 15-year loan on. And don't just think, can I afford the payments? Think, is this a wise investment? And can I pay this off in 15 years? Now, maybe you're committed to not have debt and save up for your home. That's awesome. Just a challenge with that, though, is you might finally reach the amount to buy a home when your kids have grown up. And now you have the home and you don't have the kids. So this is an investment debt. It's something you just got to wrestle and process through. But it's increasing in value. Now, something else you got to factor in is, can I afford these payments? Can I put extra on each month to knock off more years? And when I create my spending plan, is the category of house, am I paying too much? Because listen, homeowners, if the only thing that you were paying for your house was mortgage, wouldn't it be nice? Well, what else do you have to pay? Insurances, taxes, home repairs, home maintenance. The mortgage might be less than half of what you're paying for your home. And it's like, wow, I am so proud of being a homeowner. I have no money. So really, you got to be careful with your budget and make sure that you're not going to be house poor. Those of you who have ever been house poor, you feel trapped. You're like, I have a great house. I have no life. I have no money. I have to work too much to afford the house that I wanted. but it was beyond what I probably could have afforded. And so you can become house poor pretty easily. So, okay, I get it. Some of you, you're looking at this and you're like, I don't math. And I see the glaze across your face. So let me simplify this. There's bad debt where the value is increasing, and there's good debt where the value is decreasing. Let me break it down even more. A little bit more. I'm going to break this down. Losing money, bad. Making money, good. Okay? And again, if you're not a math person, if spreadsheets and all this stuff just bore you to death, make sure that you marry a nerd or partner with a nerd to help you with some of these things, because you don't want to be enslaved to a life of debt. Okay, so house debt, we've already talked about that, making sure you're not house poor. Car debt, I want to go back to the VW Jetta illustration. Let's say that 2024 VW Jetta, you would really like it. I'm not telling you not to get it. I'm just telling you wait 2.5 years. Pay yourself a car payment each month, and in 2.5 years, you'll have the $12,000 in cash to buy that thing, and it's worth $12,000. And you will drive it off the lot, and you will not instantly lose value, and you will have bought that thing free and clear. And now what you can do when you own that car is you can continue to pay yourself a car payment and save up. Now, Pastor Mike gave a little word of wisdom. He said, listen, if you're committed to buying a vehicle in cash, it doesn't mean you go to the car dealership with $12,000 in cash in your pocket. He says that's not wise, and it's a good way to be mugged. So it just means you're paying for it right out of your bank account, right? You have the money saved up. I think a better way is pay for it in pennies. The dealer will love you. So car debt, you say home debt is increasing in value, is potentially investment debt, good debt. Car debt is bad debt, decreasing in value, better to pay in cash. Now, again, I'm pushing on something that is really opposite of American culture. American culture is you find the vehicle you want and you buy it because you have to have it. The problem is you pay way too much for it and it's declining in value and you're trapped in a car payment. And some people just assume, like a house payment, I'll always have a car payment. You don't have to think that way. Now, just personally, Annie and I are committed to pay cash for our cars. That means we have no debt to a car loan, which is great. We don't always have cars that are running either. So we love our mechanic, and he's wonderful, and we see him often. But we're committed to not being in loan for a vehicle because it's really bad debt. And I know there's challenges with a business, there's challenges when you maybe need more reliability. But again, if you can develop the discipline of saying, I'm going to drive what I can afford,